Training. We've got some really great things to share with you today. Probably one of the things that seems to hang people up, and we hear a lot about it, is that how do I go from the traditional sagittal plane stuff and some of the lunging stuff that we show you, you should have a pretty good masterful hand on, but how do I take that into one of these other planes of motion? If you've been to the DVRT course, you've often probably heard Josh say that people change planes of motion, that they're not being multiplanar. So we're going to work on that change point because we're just going to lockstep you into places here. And what we're going to look at is your frontal plane today. And via the modality of two of your really most basic patterns, hinging and squatting. I think a lot of people have problems of getting their people to this. I think probably most people's experience to exposing their clients to this is simply just trying to do some lateral lunges and seeing them go real badly. If you've taken somebody that's been in the sagittal plane for too long, you'll rapidly notice that if you ask them to step that way, things can get a little sideways, and we're very cognizant of that, but we're also going to show you some very accessible steps using our two favorite tools, of course, the ultimate sandbag and the kettlebell, to get you there. Tools that you've already have and tools that are going to help your clients get to a better place, allow them to be less injury prone because they're going to address that asymmetry and lateral stability that's often talked about by researchers like Dr. Stuart McGill as being so important for an all-around level of fitness, and we can't wait to share the rest of the story with you. So our first drill here is with the awesome strength size ultimate sandbag. This is about the perfect size. You're just going to adjudicate your load a little bit for almost any individual. The power bag is going to be a little bit small, and we want the dimension of the bag to do some work. Josh is going to set up in a lateral position, so this makes it a really nice setup. You don't have people having to step into and out of and decelerate. All they're going to do is working on shifting the load through the plane of motion. So he's going to start off here, he's going to hinge, and he's going to drive that weight left and right. We can obviously take this to many different places, but also what happens here with the shucking is Josh is exposing that torso to a lot of good anti-rotational forces. You won't see him bailing out and over-rotating out of this. He's just moving that bag across. This is a great drill. This can be done for time, can be done for repetitions either way, but a great drill to start to expose the most novice a client to this frontal plane concept. It's the perfect tool for it. It's a soft tool. It allows you to keep the implement really close to the body. It's not out in the way. You don't have to worry about people leveraging or anything like that into the low back. It's the right tool and the right setup to get us started down that path of the frontal plane. Hey folks, so here we are. This is one of my current favorites of the DVRT family movements, and there's an awful lot of them, so keep your eye out on all their other content. Josh's back, parallel grip handles, strength size bag, and this is a lateral walking step, so he's going to take a nice small step. You can see that Josh is a big guy. He's much taller than I am, but he's got a nice small step, so he's into the hinge here. He's not spinning out, he's not over leveraging himself, and he's into a hinge. And then what he's going to do is we're going to take the time in here, we spend a lot of time on it, to do a bent row. Again, we're going to work on some of that core stability, obviously working on that T-spine strength and stability, using it in its truest form of the function, and then he's going to come up and step. So we've got some locomotion, some movement. Those of you that like to do the carries, this is a great segue. Boom, he's still carrying load, he's going to hinge in, he's going to row. Nice small step. Like I said earlier, your clients are probably going to want to overstep it. You just want to take nice small steps and travel. The great thing about nice small steps is you're going to get a lot of repetition and movement, and that's really what you want to expose the client to in this type of setting. These nice steps, he's got a nice straight trailing back leg. It's a fantastic drill. You could even take smaller steps than that, and you could maybe even shorten the range of motion as opposed to going all the way to the ground with the mobility and strength Josh has, and you might not even do the bent row. But just think about it in those terms. This is a movement pattern that you can start to take people to very easily. So this is where we put a little bit of the DVRT spin and fun into the kettlebell side of it. This is a fantastic idea. This is really movement based, but here's the cool part. The implement is moving in a lot of different planes of motion, and what happens here is we start to have that low center of gravity with the movement. So it's not really high sided like you've seen some of the other stuff maybe we've done in other metabolic stabilities. Josh is going to keep this kettlebell nice and low, and it's going to allow stability even though there's complexity of movement happening. So he's got a lateral step, boom, and then he's coming up, and then he's going to drop into that tactical lunge. One of the probably best drills in regards to kettlebell and having that load move in the frontal plane. Nice and steady. Obviously, we've all become very aware of doing the tactical lunge and having our clients bend over and kind of hunch the weight underneath their leg. Obviously, all the coaching cues that apply to good lunging apply to this tactical lunge, and it flows real nicely. You don't have to worry about doing walking lunges or anything like that. You can stand in this relatively small space that Josh is in and get a pile of really good lunge work done. It's a great, great drill, addressing the body moving in the frontal plane, and then subsequently with the follow-up, the load moving in the frontal plane. You've covered all your bases, and you've got a drill that's highly usable.
All right, guys, we've worked on the hinge pattern for a little bit. Now we're going to work on the lateral squatting pattern. So we're not really lunging, because what we're going to do is use a valve slide underneath Troy's foot so he can slide out. The advantage with that is, like Troy said before when we started with shucking, is we don't have that lateral deceleration workout. He can keep his center of mass over his base support and slowly gauge how much frontal plane instability he can tolerate. What we're going to do is we're going to take our power ultimate sandbag here and get in what we call the bucket position. So when Troy brings up, he's basically like he's holding a bucket. His palms are underneath, he's corkscrewing his shoulders so he still has upper body tension. This is going to allow him to be pulled into that lateral squat position and then drive up nice and tall. So while a lot of clients, if you don't put the load in the right position, they really struggle to get that depth, the bucket squat position allows us to apply load, but in a means that helps improve his motion. You see, he's doing a good job of trying to keep that outside foot neutral. A lot of people will bail out on that hip and want to turn the foot out. As much as you can, keep that foot neutral. So, but most of the weight is being done on this leg, driving through the foot, crown is nice and tall. So there's a wonderful way of introducing lateral squatting, but you can always bring back the movement to a shorter range of motion if needed. In the rack position, we're going to create a different stimulus than we did, let's say, if we went into the goblet squat. The off position is going to allow us to create cross patterns in a lot of different ways. Now, the easiest way tends to be, obviously, we're thinking about cross patterning and opposite. So if Troy's going to squat on his right leg, he's going to clean his kettlebell to his left side. This also places the center of mass more in the middle of his body, which allows him to get a little bit more used to the load. So he's going to clean that up with the left arm. Sorry. So,
you want me to go on the slide?
No. So he'll clean it up first. Then I'll bring the slide over to him so he can put his foot underneath. It's usually good not to have people clean while on the slide because obviously their foot can slide. He's going to just very slowly go back into that lateral squat. And again, we're introducing some cross-patterning concepts in a relatively safe position. So current research has shown that ipsilateral and contralateral loading can have different effects upon the body. So this is a very simple way to progress people, and we don't even have to change the load just by switching hands to the other side. Now having the load on the same side is going to create a little different stimulus. So again, you can maximize more out of your equipment, change the intensity just by simply changing which hand holds the load as you go into this pattern. Nice job, Troy. So keep this in mind when you're programming, that which hand you have the weight in does matter, and will change the intensity of the exercise, so you can always either progress it or bring it back by making simple adjustments other than load. Place a little bit more lateral stress upon our body. In DVRT, we call the shoulder position our side plank. So whenever we get in that position, we're challenging frontal plane instability and holding position. And with the side squat, we're also doing body position. So we're getting a lot of great different types of force acts upon the body in something relatively simple. So again, Troy's going to shoulder without the slide first. Then I'll give him the slide underneath his foot. So just like the kettlebell, he's going to start with that inside shoulder. And he's going to go into that nice soft lateral squat. And that's going to challenge him to stay more upright. He's going to drive up, and then what he's going to do is arc press to the opposing side. This is a nice little combination because the arc press brings a frontal plane component into our pressing pattern. So for those of you that like thrusters, like a squat and press, this is a great way to have complexity in a metabolic type drill. Nice job, Troy. And you're going to find that it's actually quite demanding upon the entire core, and what we're doing is trying to not just do the cross patterns, but integrating from the ground up, the lower body, the trunk, and the upper body all at once. So we're creating smarter training in very simple means so that you can progress people more successfully.